what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brochon Podcast, Episode 2. We are your hosts. I'm Onyx. He is...
I'm Chrome.
And we hope you guys are doing well today. And we have a couple of cool topics to talk about today. And now, don't forget, if you like what you see here, make sure you smash that like button. And let's go ahead and go right into it. First topic of today is evolution in gaming and anime. So we're going to start with anime today. My man Chrome's got it covered. What do we got here?
Well, let's see here. Let's talk about the evolution of anime. Onyx, would you like to talk about how anime was back then? Like the style?
Sure. So from in my experience in anime, it's extremely similar to cartoons. The difference is that they're, I guess, more proportionally correct. You know, usually in the cartoons, you'll see like a cow walking around town with normal people, or you'll see like, what's a good example? Or I don't want to use animals all the time. I want to come up with something like, I guess, like SpongeBob. You know, you'll see SpongeBob. It's a sponge with legs and arms. While anime, most of the time, is people are very humanoid. I guess they had correct arms, correct legs. They didn't have like a giant nose or anything like that, like Squidward. And there would be elements of other things in there, like Voltron, for example. You know, they had the pilots, but they also had the lions, which made it, you know, more stand outish than just a normal like soap opera with cartoons. And it's stylized. It's got lots of colors. It's vibrant, and there are specific themes that go along in these animes, and some of them get reused a lot. So then they become tropes, right?
Yes,
and so in my experience, starting out with like, you know, Voltron and Dragon Ball, and so it's simple in the sense that it's not overly detailed, but they get their point across. They're, in my opinion, were just hyper stylized versions of cartoons that I've been watching at the time.
Yes, indeed. Especially the proportions of like humanoid figures, like the abs, the muscles, you know, the boobs and all that. Like, it's exaggerated in a lot of them. It really does, and it's still being exaggerated today in a lot of the shows that comes out.
Yeah, that's called fan service.
Yes,
I think we kind of talked about that a little bit last time.
Yes. Speaking of fan service, what do you think of Moe? There, Onyx. Like, do you know any about it? Like, have you ever had a taste of Moe back then?
Actually, no. So you said Moe is more like, we kind of talked about this before we started recording. It's how like people like present themselves to opposite sex.
Yeah, it's more like a certain fondness over of a character, like a kind of like a feeling of romance, almost like a certain affection towards anime characters. Like, you know, like you see like a character you like, and then you have this like certain affection towards it. Like
if I had a waifu, basically.
Exactly. Like that would be like an example of it.
What was it? Well, I think it was Sailor Mars.
Oh, really?
I think it might have been Mars, or it was Jupiter. Actually, let me look that up. I haven't watched Sailor Moon in so long, man. Like a long time. Yeah, it was Mars.
Yeah.
She was the one that was more kind of like Japanese oriented, right? Like she had like a kimono most of the time.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. She was hot because, not because of the fire, but like I was like, when I was young, I was like, yo, man, I dig her. Like, I really dig her. She's cool. She's got dark hair. Everyone's got like really bright colored, different colored hairs. I think she was the one I could relate to the most aesthetically. She was the most normal, but she was also at the same time the most attractive to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of like genres that fall in line with the moe aspect. Like we got fan service like falling in line with it. We got ecchi. We got like a lot of it. Like moe is mainstream, and it's been mainstream for quite a while now. Like I remember before moe, we had like mecha was the mainstream. Like everybody like wanted to watch a mecha anime. Now it's moe. Like we have a lot of shows that portrays a lot of moe, and it's the quantity of it is like astounding, and it actually kind of drops like the quality of like the anime shows that you watch, in my opinion, because like you said before, like if one like thing gets popular, it gets used over and over, and then it just spreads out. Like but the anime industry makes a lot of money out of this. Like they sell figurines of like characters that cost about like like $300. Like really, like back then, I mean, you had like like the mecha you built. And have you ever had one, Onyx, like a mecha?
I had my first my first anime like mecha anime was Gundam Wing. A lot of that went over my head because it's very political. Most Gundams like are politics first and then action later, and Gundam Wing was, I think, the first one to be westernized, and it was really very political, and I really don't remember a lot of it. The mechs, of course, I would remember them the most because they're so thematic. Like you got Wing Zero. It's like a jet that transforms into basically a Megazord, and there was like I think it was like Death Scythe and a couple other ones that like I remember there was one that was like heavily like armed, like artillery and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of mecha that came over to the US. There was like Zoids, Immortal Grand Prix, and G Gundam, which was my favorite because it was the most action packed. And from what I've heard, G Gundam is the least popular Gundam in Japan, and it's the most popular here in the US. I think because its themes relate more here, even though the main character is Japanese, and it was like, oh yeah, all Japan this, Japan that, but at least in America was like one of the main characters too. So I think that kind of
and I also believe like taste changes over time. And I had a few contacts in Facebook on Japan, how mecha used to be big over there. Now it's all about like Love Live and Idol like base anime. Like moe just took it over like by storm, and it's selling, I can tell you that. And there's a lot of mercs like based on it, like around it. Like it's amazing. Like you don't find it a lot of here. I mean, because we don't have it, like we don't have much access of the goods over here, but over there it's different. It really is. Like you have people like coming in, and like you watch these idols like perform, and you just like they're all cheering, and like I remember watching a video about it on YouTube, and I'm like, I can't understand like how they get into it. I really don't. I guess I'm not that hardcore. But yes, it's actually quite different. Like this aspect of moe, like how it attracts like certain people, and they make a bunch of games about it too, like visual novel, erohe, which is for like the adults, and figurines. Oh my god, these figurines, like I said, it's expensive. Like how much would a model for Gundam would be? Onyx?
Ooh, it depends. I bought one. It was like $20. It was Gundam Wing Zero. But I saw another. Like if I go to my local Barnes and Noble, I could find one for like $80, $150. Like they get expensive. They can get expensive.
They can get expensive too.
I think it also depends on their size too.
Yes, like the scales and all that, and like the material. Like same thing with figurines. Like a lot of like these figurines, like they use like a certain type of material to make the skin actually feel like human like, which is, how do you feel about that, Onyx?
Weirded out, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like I would get weirded out too, but like, oh my gosh, and they like, I'm surprised like people would pay a lot for these. I mean, I shouldn't, but I wanted to pay for that much, really. What else is there? What do you think of the anime that's being released right now, Onyx? Like,
Well, I don't really get much of a chance to watch, I guess, modern anime.
mhm.
I mean, besides from watching it on TV, because like when I watch it on TV, I think the last anime I watched on TV was like the original Naruto, as it was airing, and then I didn't really have cable. I lost cable, and I think we only held on to internet, and even then, I didn't really use the internet that much. I kind of did my own devices, like I mostly played video games, you know. So when anime now, I can tell you that like from watching like Dragon Ball Super and Miss Kobayashi and SAO, animation's definitely improved. Things are more three-dimensional.
Yes, three-dimensional. Which I want to get into is that I remember when 3D CG-based anime came out, a lot of people in the anime community didn't like it. Like it was poorly made, done. The plot was horrible. Like it just didn't fit in. A lot of people were just used to like, you know, like hand-drawn animation. And actually now it's getting better. It really is. Like last year they released an anime called Hoseki no Kuni, or Land of the Illustrious, which it's 3D, but I haven't watched it yet, but I heard it was amazing. Like it made it out there in like you know, like the anime awards for Crunchyroll, and I want to watch that. But there's also like
Yuri on
popular
Ice win that?
3D. What's that?
Didn't Yuri on Ice win that?
Can you please repeat that?
Did Yuri on Ice win that award?
Oh, that was in 2016. I'm talking about 2017.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah. We don't talk about that.
What's wrong with Yuri on Ice?
That's something else. That's something else. That is something else. But yes, but I mean, if you want to get into it, but yeah, like a lot of the anime, like a lot of genres are being released that's for not just for the male audiences, but for the female audiences too. Like you see that more often. Like back in the old days, what kind of anime like did you mostly see? Like, was it mostly shonen? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was mostly shonen. I mean, the only like quote unquote girly was Sailor Moon, but even then it was kind of cool because they all had like powers. It was basically a female version of Power Rangers and Tuxedo Mask.
Which was more catered towards like male fans.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
because they catered towards like the boys because they like those actiony stuff, you know, and like there's the stereotype, you know. It was very different back then because, you know, they had the Barbies for the girls and the action figures for the boys, the G.I. Joes, you know.
Yeah, it's like a huge stereotype. Now anime is being more than now. It's more catering towards like not just for the guys but for the girls too. And
It's becoming unisexual.
yes, very, very. And we're actually seeing releases of like you know, like anime for like Yuri and Yaoi. Yuri like being girl on girl and Yaoi being guy on guy, which I'll just leave it on that. But yeah. Yes. Right. So now, Onyx, would you like to talk about gaming, evolution of gaming?
Evolution of gaming, sure, absolutely. So evolution of gaming has actually, I feel like it's similar to anime in the sense that the art styles and concepts have grown over time. Because, you know, you'll kind of look at like anime, a lot of it was pretty action oriented. Now we're starting to get a little bit more of everything. Slice of life, there's cooking shows, there's sports, You know, it's more spread out. It's not so much fantasy, but now they're starting to mix fantasy with realism and other things, right?
Yeah.
So now for gaming, it was very fantasy, and now it's starting to kind of transition to more realism. You know, because like we're getting it more into like first person shooters, and like with Call of Duty trying to make it as quote unquote realistic as possible. But let's be real here. If you get shot in the head one time, you're dead. But 2 to 3 shots and you're dead. And that doesn't make any sense.
Yes, and then like a knife to like any part of the body, you're instantly dead. But
jabs
like,
at COD. Well, they fixed that apparently. Takes 2 jabs.
Yeah, I remember those days in the COD. It's funny. It's funny how it works, like the game mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Like knife was an insta kill.
Yeah, I kind of like it when it was insta kill because like a lot of it's like panic knifing, but whatever. Well, we're not gonna get into that. Back on topic. So when I'm thinking of evolution of gaming, first thing I think of hardware. You know, we kind of talked about how the NES started with the game and the Game Boy, how they were, you know, you go to the Super Nintendos, it goes from like 8-bit to 16. And one technical difficulty later, we're back on track.
Yes, we are. So
what I was saying is, when I think of evolution of gaming, I think of hardware progression first. You know what I'm saying? So we had our NESs, we had our Super Nintendos, 8 bits, 16, 32 bits, and then the major jump was when we jumped into 3D. Now, I think a couple of companies, in my experience, have tried to go into 3D before. Like, I remember Super Nintendo did this thing with like Star Fox, and again, kind of did like a 3D thing. And then they had like the Virtual Boy, and that didn't work out so well. But when they jumped to the N64, and this is my first experience with 3D gaming, I'm talking from experience. Mm-hmm. When I first experienced 3D on the Nintendo 64, my tiny little brain shattered into 1,000 pieces because it was such a new thing. It was something I couldn't fathom. It was ridiculous. Mario 64 was the one to tear my mind apart. And I was like, wait, I can walk in circles. I can jump. I can do triple jumps. I can like do backflips, and you can wall jump, and you can tackle enemies from different angles, punch them, kick them, jump on their heads. It's so new. It was so fresh. It was so different. It was such a big deal back then, you know? And because of our jump to 3D, I feel like a lot of game developers wanted to jump into that too because of Super Mario 64, because I think Mario 64 was a launch title.
I believe so. And
so I think, you know, eventually the Dreamcast came out, the PlayStation 1 came out, and they all had their own kind of like 3D like mascots like Crash and Sonic Adventure, and a lot of games try to replicate what they did because the thing with 3D gaming is at first they were all platformers, all of them, just like how they started out in 2D. Like almost every game was a platformer because they didn't know anything else. They didn't like try to expand on that. And then 007 GoldenEye came out, and that was like one of the first games that introduced me to multiplayer. And Super Smash Brothers. Super Smash Brothers, that's my game, dude. Super Smash Brothers broke the mold for many different things. For one, it was the first, in my experience, the first crossover game to occur. I didn't really count Mario Party because, you know, Donkey Kong and Yoshi and all that were in there. But like Super Smash Brothers like destroyed the barriers when it came to crossovers, because you could never imagine that Mario would be punching Link in the face and Link would be trying to stab Samus's armor. It's just something that you just couldn't really fathom. And not only did they like break ground with their, you know, the crossover thing, they also broke ground in fighting games, because they changed the whole format. You know, what was your first fighting game?
My first fighting game, it was Street Fighter, I believe. Yes.
So you know that Street Fighter is on a 2-dimensional plane.
Yes.
You go left and right, punch, kick,
yeah.
drop the health bar, right?
Yes, I remember it.
Mm-hmm. So for Smash Brothers, it was completely different. You would hit the person as many times as you could, and you would cause more damage to that character. And by causing more damage to that character, you would send them flying farther and farther. And the goal was to try to throw them off the stage. That's completely new to me, you know. Yeah. And it's a fighting game. If like, especially nowadays, Smash Brothers has exploded into such a. It became part of the meta. Like it's an Evo now. You know, that's a big deal, and it took years for Smash Brothers to get to that point, because it was always considered to be a party game, but it's also a legitimate fighter. There are mechanics in there that give the game a very deep and complex, you know, mechanics and stuff. It's crazy. Oh, yeah. So let's kind of skip forward a little bit. Let's go from polygons to more shaped up sort of things. So, you know, everything in the N64 era, the PS1 era, the Dreamcast era, everything was made of polygons. Everything was a lot was 3-dimensional, but it was kind of pointy, you know? Like let's go into like the PS2 era, like PlayStation, Xbox kind of jumped into there. Microsoft jumped in there with their Xbox and try to put themselves out there, and the Nintendo GameCube came out. So I forget. I'm not exactly too keen on the years of this happening, but I'm trying to go in like chronological order from my experience. So this is like early mid 2000s, a little bit farther back from mid 2000s actually. So I had a Nintendo GameCube, and later on I got a PS2, but my first experience to like, it's not high definition, but more stylized graphics, more better animation, stuff like that, kind of like how anime had kind of progressed. My first experience to something as like smooth and well animated and like dialogued, you know, with voice acting, was on the PS2 on this game. It was called Final Fantasy X, which would become my first Final Fantasy. And I had a neighbor who lived like 2 houses down, and this guy's parents became friends with my parents, so we'd go over their house. They'd come over to our house all the time, and this dude had the coolest man cave. He was in a band. He was like he was in like the whole metal screamo thing. I don't like to call it screamo, but it's to generalize it. People know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I guess.
And he had this huge man cave. He had movies, games. Like, if you think my collection's big, this dude's collection is like 5-10 times bigger.
It's a haven.
It's basically a haven, and I would want to go to this guy's house all the time because of it, you know. And he was also one of the first person. He was the first person to introduce me to more mature anime too. But we'll talk about that later.
Some other time. But yes, go on.
So he was playing Final Fantasy X. He was playing a boss. He was doing this boss fight, and Final Fantasy X was like turn based, but like as like you're waiting for your turn, like characters would do like these animations and stuff. I was like, whoa, it's so smooth. Like the edges are so smooth, and like they move their mouths when they talk. There's voice acting. It's actually pretty well done. It doesn't sound like something off of Resident Evil 1, which we all know was terrible voice acting. It was comical how bad it was. That's why it's so beloved. And like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, die monster, you don't belong in this world. Legit, that's how it was.
Yeah.
And so I was like, whoa, what just happened? I had like, and this isn't much longer after I got a Nintendo 64, because I got it for my birthday and it was like right at the end of the Nintendo 64 era. I got a gold edition Nintendo 64 with Super Smash Brothers, and that was like the only thing I played for like ages. And I ended up getting a GameCube. I got it because I knew this new Super Smash Brothers was going to be on there. So Smash was a console seller for me, but I think the first game I got was Metroid Prime. And Metroid Prime was also one of those games that kind of like exploded in my head when I first saw it. That and Super Mario Sunshine, for different reasons. Super Mario Sunshine really made color more explosive in video games for me, because the place you go to is it's an island. It's sunny. There's a lot of clear blue water. The ink or the paint that's like gets splattered around is multicolored. It's got like swirls in it, and it would move around on its own. It was really cool. And when I played Metroid Prime, that was a first-person adventure game, and it was dark. It was gloomy, but like Samus's suit was super detailed. It was sleek. The edges are sharp. The curves are round. And I was like, bam, whoa, man, this is what the Nintendo GameCube can do. So for me, like as an evolution, you know, we've come a long way when it comes to presentation, aesthetics, and not only that, but animation. You know, I feel like a lot of animation was influenced by anime when it comes to gaming.
I believe so too.
You know, you get a lot of tropes when it comes to that. You know, like walking away from explosions and stuff like that. And now my cat is here. Hello, kitty cat. And shh, go away. And so let's kind of fast track a little bit. Let's move on from that era into the HD era. The HD era where the war became stupid, but just as real as ever. So I didn't really talk about Xbox at the time, you know, in this era, because I didn't have one. I didn't really see one. You know, when I saw one, it was like towards its end. And the only game I played on it was Halo 2.
Really?
Yeah. Halo 2 was my first Halo. And so when we go into the HD era, I couldn't afford it. It took me a long time to get an Xbox. I didn't get a PS3 ever. And on that time, I was more into my handhelds. So I was more into my Game Boy Advance. I ended up getting a PSP, which, in my opinion, PSP games aren't very good, but there are some gems on that thing. Like, definitely got Crisis Core Final Fantasy for it, because I was into Final Fantasy because of Final Fantasy X, my first Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X was actually the first Final Fantasy game, actually my first video game to ever make me cry. So I like the storytelling of Final Fantasy games, and I was like really surprised that they would have one for PSP that was as in-depth as it was. Also made me cry. Final Fantasy has a history of making me cry for some reason. And so I was on my handhelds, and the PSP was actually very interesting to me because for a handheld, it had PS2 level of graphics. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Like in 2007.
Technology has evolved.
Yeah, exactly. In 2007, I could literally play a PS2 game on a handheld, and the PSP could also play PS1 games if you download them. I played Final Fantasy VII, the original, on my PSP. But they also had like just a lot of games. It was my first. The PSP introduced me to Monster Hunter for the first time in like 2007. And so it was, just like I said, you could find the gems, and that's the only things I played were the gems, because there was a lot of games that were very samey, kind of like mobile games.
Yeah.
And I think Christmas one year I got the 360. It was my first like HD console, and I got Marvel Ultimate Alliance for it because there wasn't really a lot of games that appealed to me, and I couldn't get Halo 3 because it was rated M and it was too expensive. It was just, I had to get something like $40, so that was the only thing I got.
Yeah. So that was your first game on the 360.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember. Actually, a funny thing on how I got the Xbox 360. I was actually trying to buy the PSP.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. Like I went in Best Buy. It was, I believe, around September. I forgot what year, but I was actually there. I had enough money for the PSP, and then they had the Xbox 360 set up, and I'm like, man, like all my friends have an Xbox 360 besides me. But I kind of want to get a PSP because that's the only thing I can afford. And then my dad was like, you know what? You could go ahead. Go get that console. Like,
no way.
Really?
Real?
Yeah.
Well, what a cool dad.
Yes, I know. And it was the arcade version of the 360.
Same here.
Yeah. And,
the cheapest one.
It's my first game on the 360 was actually Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which was hot back then.
Yeah, that's pretty hot.
But here's the thing, though. I didn't get online online multiplayer until like 2 years later because I couldn't afford the live. But I still enjoyed it. Like I played through like Modern Warfare 2 like multiple times, like through its stories, and that's the only game I had for 2 years until I got online.
I think when I had gotten my 360, it was a little while after Modern Warfare, the first one, came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get online or Modern Warfare for a little while. Online was just mostly a thing, with my parents. Like, video games was a very new thing for them because my parents are relatively old. They were born in the 1950s. So video games was like super new to them. And so, of course, being good parents, they're being cautious about like, having their kid interact with the internet,
Yes, with strangers. Like,
exactly.
They can't see their faces. They don't know who they are or what their motives are.
Mm-hmm. And for someone, and I was older, I was like 15, 16, but like, I could get scammed or something, but you don't really get that too much on Xbox, at least in my experience. But then again, I don't really like talk to randoms often anyway. And so when I hit HD era, I didn't play. There wasn't a lot of games that like really called out to me until I think I got my first COD, and I was like, all right, this is gaming. This is what gaming is now. It's such a different experience because everyone was trying to jump on the multiplayer bandwagon.
Yeah. Which is the majority of it is like the FPS.
Yeah, a lot of it was FPS, but like even games that are like specifically designed for single player, try to they shoehorned multiplayer in there, just because it's a thing, Yeah,
it changed the gaming industry.
Yeah, it was huge, and Microsoft was a big pioneer of that. In my opinion,
with Xbox Live.
Yeah, like on the original Xbox, because like that's how I saw that. Like, when I was playing Halo 2, I wasn't just playing couch. I was playing like
Local.
not just yeah. I wasn't playing local. I was playing online with friends of my neighbors. Split screen. You know how Halo works with split screen and online. So that was like a really new concept, and it kind of went over my head. I was like, all right, I guess this is a thing. But it's not like online gaming was never there. Online gaming was on the PS2. It's just I don't know anybody that's used it. So when I said that the console wars became unnecessarily stupid, was like when the PS3 came out after Xbox. Of course, PS3 is gonna have better specs. Everyone jumped on it. It was like $700. And it was backwards compatible with the PS2, which I think that was a very positive thing for a lot of people because PS2 was like a juggernaut. It was one of the most sold consoles in history, and that with that appeal. But honestly, you'll look at the games and they're pretty much the same. You when you get a console, you're pretty much getting the exclusivity.
Yeah.
And that kind of introduced me more to exclusive content than before. Of course there would be exclusive content with consoles back then because you can only play your Nintendo games on the Nintendo consoles, right? Mm-hmm. But now you have stuff that's like specific for these things and that will keep coming out, or like Call of Duty. Xbox would always get the Call of Duty DLCs first, so that was my first introduction to that. And DLC was not cheap.
It wasn't.
And I always feel like DLC was not as fulfilling as I thought it would be, either.
Yeah.
Well, I think it might be because I've never owned a Halo game until Reach, and I don't think they even had a lot of map packs for that, did they?
I don't believe so.
I think they might have had 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But I know Halo 3 had a butt ton of map packs, right?
Yes it did.
And some of them were free, which was nice. And so going from the HD era to now, it's still pretty much the same thing. Just the graphics are more intense because of the new engines. And do you know how engines work?
No, not really.
Engines are what people. So back then you have to code everything. Engines have coding taken care of already. So there are things like textures already in there. You just basically pay for a license and then you use the engine to build your game. You've heard of the Unreal Engine, right?
Yes
Yeah, that's what Gears of War is built on. So Gears of War uses that Unreal Engine. The engine itself can be improved, but the if you notice that the Unreal Engine looks kind of samey all across the board. If you look at Gears 1 and you look at the Unreal Tournament, those characters have very similar body types. Or you look at Gears of War 3 and you watch, let's take DMC Devil May Cry, for example. They have a similar orange shade to things. So basically an engine is to simplify game development. It's drag and drop and you kind of manipulate things on your own from there. So using an engine can it gives developers things to work on, but at the same time those things might not always work. The best example might be Mass Effect Andromeda. Because they use the Frostbite engine on that, and Frostbite is built specifically for Battlefield.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, let's see, what's the name? Dice was the is the developer that made the Battlefield games. They made that Frostbite engine, so EA doesn't have to commission all the developers under it to use that engine, but it's an option. So BioWare wanted to use the Frostbite engine and build Mass Effect Andromeda from there, because it has specs and stuff like that they like. Didn't turn out very good. We all know what happened to Mass Effect Andromeda. You just look at that poor character model's face. I might even put like a picture of it on the screen, and it's so derpy looking. But the point I was trying to make with the engines is that we've come so far from just having to code zeros and ones and ifs and that's to something as simple as drag and drop. With now we're in our modern age, creating games that are like almost like blockbuster movie level of detail in CG, and the animation with the motion capture and the dialogue, the voice acting, it's all different now. It's come such a long way in these past 20 years, 30 years, so I can only imagine where we're going to go from here. I know VR gaming's a thing, but
it's becoming, yes. And they're improving on it too.
How do you feel about VR gaming?
VR gaming. Let me see here. In my experiences, I've actually tried out the PlayStation's VR demo. It was cool. I really like it, but it feels weird. Like, I believe they need to put more games into that, more development until it becomes a thing. Because when I look at VR, you see, I think about anime, and thing is, because I watched SAO, and I was like, wow, this is some VR stuff. But I'm pretty sure we can reach that point in time. But right now, it's in its prototype, with the VR. Like, the first time I heard about VR was Oculus Rift, PC. And when I looked at it, I was like, it looks weird. It looks clunky. Like, I don't know if I want to wear that on my face. And we start going to console, for PlayStation. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess this can be a thing. And this thing can sell. Definitely. What do you think about it, Onyx?
When I think of the VR, I think it's actually better for you to experience it than watch footage of it, because it does look really clunky. I've never actually played any VR game, but I'm not interested in it. I don't like what it looks like. And they're all too similar, kind of like how gaming first started, and I understand that VR is such a new thing. It's kind of hard to do something daring with it because people are still trying to figure it out. Yeah. So it's still too early for me to even think about VR. Yes. The whole SAO thing, the full dive, SAO kind of ruined it for me. I don't want to get stuck and die forever.
Okay. That's just like the plot, this story. But what about the aspect of the full dive besides the death part?
I think it's awesome. I think it's really cool. My problem is like thinking about it because I have a family and I'm a provider, and having to play those VR games, you kind of lose yourself from the real world. Like
a full immersion.
Exactly. It might be too immersive. Maybe I will prefer one reality over the other.
Yeah.
And that kind of worries me. And let's just hope it doesn't have loot boxes. Now, RNG will always be a thing, but loot boxes can go like out the window most of the time. And that's actually one thing I kind of wanted to like save as a separate topic. Loot box games or loot boxes But just like a quick summary, how do you feel about loot boxes?
Loot boxes. To be honest, I don't really have a problem myself on loot boxes. I mean, I don't spend money on loot boxes at all. Like, I play the game and get loot boxes. It's RNG, and good thing that the only loot box experience I have was basically just Overwatch, and it's just cosmetics, and it's fun. It really is, and I would just keep playing through it. But yeah, I haven't have any other experience with other games that have loot boxes, so I only have like positive ones.
Do you play any mobile games?
No, not really.
Oh wow, okay, because you know those free-to-play games are mostly loot box games. Like, and I'll tell you right now, I do have a gambling addiction. Like, as funny as that sounds, and as I probably sound really young too, I've actually gone gambling before. Like legit gambling.
And how did that turn out?
Not good. So my parents took me when I was 18. My parents took me to Charlestown, and Charleston's called, and it's in Virginia. And there's a racetrack, but there's also a casino. And my dad, well, when I was younger, 15, 13, my dad would make bets for me. You know, like he'd say, all right, son, pick a number. Which one do you want? And I was like, I don't know. I'll just pick 7 because that's, you know, my lucky number. He was like, all right, cool. So he was like, do you have like $5 on you? He's like, yeah, here you go. So he'll make the bets for me, and that's probably like super illegal. But it's in the past. I mean, nobody got hurt. You know, and that was kind of like my first time like seeing it. It wasn't much of an experience though, because I wasn't there making the bet. You know, when I was of legal age to gamble in Virginia, because it was at 18 at the time, we went over to the slot machines and the blackjack tables and stuff, and I went ham. My dad gave me $15. He was like, all right, let it rip. Win some, lose some, try to get something. I was like, all right, cool. I won $50 and then lost it all. So
slot machines?
Slot machines and tables.
Really? They actually let you play on the table?
Yeah, no, it was legal age.
Oh, because you were 18.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were still like 15 and stuff.
Oh, no. My parents never condoned that. But they would have me jump on the slot machines, and I was just going ham, man. I was like winning some, losing some, and it was a good time. But like
the thrill,
it was the thrill of winning, and the losing. It made me want to like not give up, and I think that might be part of my gamer attitude, to be honest.
Yes.
You know, because like I'm like when it comes to like some games, I'm just like relentless, and I won't give up until I beat it. And there are some games that were just like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to have to let it go, come back to it like another time. That's what I did with my first Dark Souls. And, but like, I know from that day forward, I have an addiction to gambling. When it comes to money, I want to win, and I'll keep going until I do. And even, for me, I don't know when to stop. And so I was like, okay, And then when they started introducing loot boxes, I was just like, this is not going to be good. And it was before I even like had the experience with loot boxes. I just knew it was not going to be good for me. You know, because like, especially with these mobile games are evil. They're evil. They're evil, dude.
It was
They're
programmed
evil.
that way.
I don't know if you've been listening to like any of like the news lately here in the US with these loot boxes. Have you heard anything?
Bits and pieces, but it just goes over my head. Can you tell me more about it?
Well, I know Washington State has ruled that Big Fish Casino Gaming. Big Fish Casino. It's an app on your phone that you can get like poker chips that you can get just by playing the game, or you could buy it. But poker chips are required to play the mini games. So
Really?
if you run out of poker chips, you would have to wait until you get another poker chip from the game. I think you get like one poker chip a day or something like that. I think it requires like 5 for you to play.
Oh wow.
So you have to wait 5 days to get enough poker chips to keep playing again, and then win more. So Washington State has ruled that it's illegal because it requires you to buy poker chips, and in that sense, it becomes gambling. Because and the worst part is that you're not getting any real money back. And this is available to anybody of any ages. You know, so you could you could have your kid who's like 10 years old and it's like well, you know, just charge it to the phone bill. You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and buy some chips, and there goes your money, and it goes to nothing of value coming back to you. You know, and a lot of mobile games are like that. Of course, it's not required for you to use anything. Like, I play Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. It's a card / RPG / bubble popping game. You don't need to spend anything to play it, but if you want to get any decent cards, you have to be extremely lucky or shell out like hundreds of dollars worth of premium currency to get what you want. And like, there are times I like, and they're not too bad about handing out the premium currency. They're a lot more generous in Japan. Like, the Japan side of this game is overly favored. Like, it's caused multiple uproars about how the favoritism is like so obvious. But there'd be, you know, I remember one time I was saving up stones and this banner came out. I was like, oh hey, I could get a legendary rare, which is like the highest rarity. I did it one time and got it. I was like, oh, I'm so lucky. Or I could have been that guy and spend $300 trying to get that card. But there's only like a 0.5% chance of you getting it. You know what I mean?
Yes, the RNG.
Yeah, the RNG is pretty bad. But yeah, so loot boxes are now starting to become like under the microscope, and I think a lot of it has to do with Battlefront 2 scandal. You know about that?
Just bits and pieces of it, but yes, I've heard of it.
So they locked progression behind loot boxes. Do you know what that means?
Can you give me more in-depth detail about it?
So, who's your favorite Star Wars character?
I would like to say Darth Vader.
Good choice. So Darth Vader, you don't have him right away. You have to unlock him in a loot box, or
yes,
you have to reach a certain level. So let's say you have to reach level 20 to get Darth Vader, but you get experience points like you would trying to get out of Warrant Officer 3 in Halo Reach.
Oh, okay.
I know you would understand that because Warrant Officer 3 is like the worst wall to get over in Halo.
Gosh, it took me a long time just to progress over that.
Yeah, but like when you notice, like after Warrant Officer 3, like your progression sped up again, right?
Yeah, I did.
Imagine that, but like from level 1 to like forever. And you would have to be playing the game for like 2 years nonstop to unlock everything. Or you get in loot boxes, which have the worst drop rates you could ever imagine, and those things are required like from progression. They're not just skins, they're actual like weapons, actual characters that you want to use. You can't use Darth Vader from the beginning. You can't. Who does that?
Well, you can't spell steal without EA, right?
And you know, and I know EA gets a lot of flack for all this, and it's not like EA is a single person. It's a group of people. There could be people up there that are voting against this stuff. You know, they might have a business plan. They want to try to like create a live service where people get money, where they get money for handing out new stuff over time, because it's not just the base game. But I could go on and on about this. This could be a topic for its own video, to be honest. Like, can you imagine if anime had loot boxes?
No, I can't really. How would that be? Can you explain more about like loot box and anime? Because I can't imagine that.
Oh man, I have a perfect example, man.
All right.
Let's say you're using the Crunchyroll app, right?
Okay.
Let's say you're a free user. You're watching half an episode or half a movie. Let's say you wanted to watch a movie. What movie would you like watch on Crunchyroll?
Kimi no Na wa.
Okay, you wanted to watch Kimi no Na wa? All right, let's say you get to a quarter of Kimi no Na wa, and then it stops you. It's like, oh, you've reached your time limit. You can unlock more time by buying a pack of this, or that.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Like, you gotta pay for the subscription now. Your minute is up.
Right?
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
Well, I know they have a subscription, but that just lets you skip the ads and you get, you know, full 1080p and all that, like, higher def things. You know, and I think for like, I don't know how much it is, like $5 a month, it's not too bad. It's better than Netflix, but it's still. And I always like I would prefer to support the official release for things, whether it's games or anime, because if I bootlegged Dragon Ball Super throughout its entirety and everyone else did, you know, the officials wouldn't know if Dragon Ball Super is well liked, or you know, if they see it and it's not getting views because everyone's going on those like pirate sites, they're never gonna like bring Dragon Ball back again after that, or they might cancel it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see. But I mean, these websites, you know, like piracy websites for anime, they made fans out of people, you know, who couldn't get legal access to watching anime. So yeah, but we could actually talk about this in another video, like if piracy is the problem, you know, for anime.
Oh yeah, you know,
Yeah,
piracy
definitely.
can be such a huge topic on anime and gaming.
Definitely.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I know I rambled a lot about gaming, but I've had a lot of gaming history. My bad.
Yes, and I believe you actually pretty much covered loot boxes on this.
Oh man, I could go on and on about loot boxes, man. Screw loot boxes.
Yes. Actually, going back, so how much did you spend any money on that mobile game, Dragon Ball?
No, because I don't want my significant other to find out.
But let's be honest here. Have you?
Yes, I have. And I've told her. I've told her that whenever I have like bought Dragon Stones, and I usually get them on sale, and I don't usually like spend them at all at once. I will just like buy them on a sale and just hold on to them for a card that I might want later on. That because you know, since JP, the JP side I think is like 6 months ahead, or it may be 3 months. I think it's half a year. I think they're half a year ahead. The global side knows when everything's coming out. So people who cover the JP version of the game, it's like, oh yeah, Super Saiyan 3 Bardock is coming out in global like 6 months from now. So I was like, all right, I got 6 months to save.
Nice.
And that's a card I really, really want because Super Saiyan 3 is one of my favorite transformations. Hashtag Super Saiyan.
Hashtag drop that money.
Oh my god, no. So let's drop a topic for the comments section down below. Let's start a discussion. Give us a hashtag. Let me think a little bit, because this one I didn't really plan out. Give us a hashtag game experience. Let us know in the comments down below. Let's create a discussion about it, how your gaming experience was, in the sense that, were you able to game for a certain amount of time, or if you were sporadic, and did you like your experience in gaming or in anime? Is the culture something that you can relate to when it comes to anime? You can choose your topic, or you can do one or the other.
Yes.
Anything to add?
Also, like how changes in the anime industry. Like, what do you think of it from the things that you saw in your childhood to now? Like, start a discussion about that. Like, how things changed. Did you like it? Was it better or was it worse?
And I know people have had bad experiences with both. Like, there are really bad games out there, and I'm sure there are really bad anime out there.
Oh, definitely.
Like, have you ever heard of Ghost Stories?
I've heard of it, but it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, maybe that's an anime we could watch. Because this anime is very infamous for having a really terrible story, and it was like the worst, like one of the worst Japanese animes to like ever exist. But when it was English dubbed, it became the greatest thing possible because it just turned into an abridge.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Like, we'll talk about it.
Yes, we'll talk about it another time. Definitely.
We'll talk about it another time. Definitely. All right, so I think that's it for today. Would you like to say anything, Chrome?
No. Let's wrap it up.
All right, man. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new for more content. We got some reviews coming out pretty soon. We will be doing a weekly podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. All right, have a good day. See you later.
See ya.